Hello, everybody, and welcome into Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodity sector. My name is Jesse Day. Today is June 29th, 2026. And before we dive in, today's standard disclaimer: nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And my guest today is the CEO of Kootenay Silver, an exploration company actively engaged in the discovery and development of mineral projects in the Sierra Madre region of Mexico, supported by one of the largest junior portfolios of silver assets in Mexico. It's James McDonald. Great to have you back on the show again.
Hey, Jesse. Yeah, good to be back.
I'd love to talk about the silver price. Let's start off with that because obviously we had dramatic price action earlier in the year, new all-time highs. Everybody was celebrating. But now here we are back below $60 once again. Still very impressive when you consider that when silver was in the 30s or so last year, very few people predicted that it would go to 50 or higher. I'm wondering what your thoughts are so far on this recent price action, this new reality below $50, and do you think we'll get back to triple digits again?
Yes, I do think we'll get back to triple digits again. It's a matter of time and a reasonable chance it'll happen before the end of this year, in my opinion. So we saw obviously very dramatic move. We've been waiting for this for a long time, predicting it, believing in it. The silver the silver deficit has been running for quite a number of years. All the fundamentals behind the silver price are really strong. None of that's changed. Same with the gold price. I mean, silver follows gold, and so if we just watch what the gold's doing, but silver had lagged gold for so long that finally, when it made its move, that move was so fast and so dramatic. It was incredible. So I mean, we're looking at this with perspective. What is your perspective? So from what time frame are you looking at this silver price? Because if you were just to have somehow gone away and had not had any media contact for the last year, you'd look at the price today and go, wow, what happened? That's fantastic. But instead, you saw $120 in January, February, and now it's just under 60, and so it's down 50% from the peak. It looks terrible, but in fact, it's not. Silver miners are making a lot of money at this price. It bodes really well for developers like we've now become with our new PA, and the capital is still available. There's a lot of capital still coming in the sector. So the macro backdrop to what's driving the silver price, nothing has changed there. And in fact, it's as strong as it was uh, before the beginning of this year and before the explosive move in silver.
Completely agree with you. We're going to dive into the PEA that you've got out at Kootenay Silver in a moment. But first, I want to talk about the supply demand fundamentals and the fact that they are not being reflected in the price at present. Because according to the Silver Institute, we're in the sixth consecutive year of persistent silver supply deficits. Now, we hear a lot about paper manipulation of the markets. A lot of people believe that that's why the, supply demand fundamentals have not actually reflected themselves in the price of silver on the screen. When do you think the market wakes up to this supply imbalance? And where is all the needed silver ultimately going to come from? There's very few primary silver mines out there, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. Very few primary silver mines. Most silver is produced as a byproduct of something else. So it's in fact driven by a different metal price and dynamic. And you can't just throw a switch and increase the silver supply. It doesn't work that way. It's a huge time frame to go from discovery of a new deposit to producing, and it's 10 to 20 years, depending on your jurisdiction on average. So there's no way you can just increase that silver supply. And the increasing silver demand, and then a stagnant silver production really that we have, and that long timeline needed to increase silver production is our set of fundamentals that I believe are going to keep that silver price very strong for quite a while. We've been believers that we're entering, and now we have entered a silver bull market, and we believe it'll be multi-year for many of those types of reasons. And when's the market going to wake up? Well, I think it has. I mean, when you saw silver explode from 40, then 50, and then all of a sudden over $100 earlier this year in a very, very short time frame, that's the market waking up. And now I think you've got a dynamic where that was probably that move was driven by I don't know what exactly, but it was driven by the investment community, is driven by institutional. It was also driven by some central bank buying as well. So quite a number of factors, but I don't think the general market really entered the silver space yet either. And in terms of particularly speculation. And now when you look at the veteran investors in the mining sector, it's kind of a show me. They've been hit on the head so many times with false silver moves. There's a feeling, is this going to pull all the way back to $30 or something like that? And I don't believe so. You look at previous moves. So you look at the last big silver gold bull market, which started in the early 2000s, around probably arguably 2002, where it really started to lift a little bit. Ran for 10 years approximately. And prior to that, the silver price was trading in a band of around $4.50 to $5.50 for the most part. Prior to that, during that silver run, it exploded over $50 eventually, and then it settled into a band that was like $20 for a long time, and then $20.25. That was the new kind of base, up from 4 to 5, more or less. And so now you're going to see the same thing play out, but we haven't even seen the silver move finish yet. This is just the beginning, in my opinion anyway. This is just the beginning of that silver move. It was the first spike. Now we're getting retrenchment and consolidation of that, and then it'll move again. And then at that point, people will start to realize, hey, the silver price is not coming back down to that 20-25 band. It's going to be up here somewhere when it finally does settle down and the fundamentals sort themselves out. That's how we see it.
We've seen a number of signs that governments are waking up to silver's role as a strategic asset. Here's a few of them. Project Vault, of course, in the US, they're allocating $12 billion approximately to critical mineral stockpiling. That includes silver. The Russian central bank announcing purchases of silver along with gold, platinum, and palladium in 2025. The Saudi central bank actually buying close to 1 million shares of SLV, marking one of the first major central banks to kind of publicly take an active stake in the silver market. Of course, we've seen China's recent export controls on the metal, and there's many more out there as well. What do you make of this trend of governments treating silver as a strategic asset, and do you expect it to accelerate moving forward?
Well, yeah, I don't know about the acceleration part. It's certainly not going to go away. Silver is a very strategic metal. It's the best electric conductor we have, and that's why it's used so extensively, particularly in the solar industry. Any electronics that you have, for example. Also, quite a large component of silver consumption in the medical industry. It's a kind of a lesser known use, but very, very strong antibacterial silver is. So, yeah, there was a number of very significant changes through 2025, you pointed out. And the Russian central bank buying, I think that was in the fall. And if you look back, maybe that was the bell that was rung. You always try to see what point in history things cause things to break out, but it's never ever one thing. But when the Russians announced that the central bank was buying silver started to make a move not that long after. And then, of course, these strategic stockpiles, that's silver that's going to be taken off the market and not coming back on. China is restricting exports, controlling that more. Well, they want to keep the silver for their own industrial use at a minimum. and I don't know how much they're storing in bullion. But these things, I don't see these things changing at all. And uh, as for accelerating, well, who knows? I don't know, but the the setup is there for a very strong silver market here going forward.
Let's turn to the silver mining sector. Using the SIL ETF as a proxy, we're down around 6% year to date. I believe silver itself down by around 9% more than that. What will it take to turn this sector around and have it start acting as most expect? You mentioned at the top of the show that silver producers are now making excellent cash flows because of the re-rated price of silver. We've noted how it's fallen, but still, just under that $60 mark. That's a very good silver price for a lot of producers out there. People expect the silver mining sector to act as a levered play on the price of silver. They've expected the same from the gold mining sector. We've seen a similar theme play out where the miners haven't really performed to many investors' expectations. What are your thoughts there on the overall health of the silver mining sector and what it might take to turn it around?
Well, turn it around. I don't quite view it that way. I think we've entered now a bull market, and I think it has turned around. And I think when you speak of turning it around, you're looking at an interim volatility in the market. So we saw this tremendous spike in late January, early February, over to $120. So that's a real dislocation on what was happening beforehand. So now you have to have some adjustment, and the market has to digest that. So what will it take for the market, they say, come back in and the stock prices start to move again? Well, probably just some time and some confidence built on the long-term price, because when the average investor sees that kind of volatility, not many investors have the stomach to ride that kind of volatility. So now I think it's in a period of where it's show me now. Okay, show me where this silver price is going to settle. Show me where the bottom is, in other words. And once they see the bottom in, and then start to see the consolidation finished and the silver price stabilize and start to rise again, in my opinion, it's just the beginning of this bull market. So, and then at that point, you'll see the market coming back into the silver sector like it was before. But what we're seeing in the investment community and on the institutional side and some of the brokers is that they don't think the thesis for the reasons why you're buying silver a few months ago has changed. Nothing's changed. That's the feedback we get. So I think we're just in a period of consolidation now, smooth that volatility out and give the general investment community just some confidence of that they're not going to step in and have the floor drop out on them, because with that volatility, it really unsettles the average person.
Great thoughts, and I tend to agree with you there. I want to shift to Kootenay Silver. Start by giving us an overview of the company. You've been on a couple of times before, but for those who are new to the Kootenay Silver story, perhaps you could fill us in, and then also your overall game plan as you envision it for 2026 and beyond.
So Kootenay Silver, very simply, we're a silver exploration company focused on the discovery of silver deposits naturally in Mexico. And Mexico is the biggest silver producing region in the world. And so when you're looking for silver, that's the place you really want to be. We've been in Mexico a long time, over 20 years. We've made 4 different discoveries. So we have 4 different deposits. And the most recent discovery is something called Columba, and we're actively drilling that property now. We put out a maiden resource a year ago, 54 million ounces at Columba, 284 grams, really good vein widths. And we were focused on that for the last 5 years because it's the type of discovery, once we get it large enough to justify a mine build, it's the type of deposit that can make money at any silver price. So when silver was still under $30 not that long ago, that's what we were focused on, because the other three deposits we have needed higher silver prices, certainly over 30 somewhere. And so we just put those ones on the back burner until we got into a new silver price environment, which we entered in a big way in the last 6 to 8 months. And so we initiated a PEA on one of the other three deposits called La Ciguera. And we just put that out just over a week ago, and great numbers. It sits in a famous mining district in Mexico called Perel. 20 kilometers south of us. They've been mining there for almost 500 years, up to depths of 2,000 meters now, just 20K away. And this deposit's right at surface. So you can imagine what the upside is here for even getting bigger. But the PA numbers are great. We used a consensus long-term price from banks of $50 and silver, and the PA numbers NPV after tax of 763 million US, and an IRR of 41%. So great, really great numbers. So now we've suddenly gone from an explorer, expanding on our resource size and advancing Columba towards a PA, from that stage to, hey, La Ciguera, it's got a positive PA. That PA is telling us you got to take this down the feasibility path and mine decision. So now it's transitioning that project and the company into a developer explorer, not just an explorer. So it's a big change for us. And what we're going to be starting to focus on the next steps in La Ciguera now to take it down that path. The very first thing we're going to do at La Ciguera is a modest sized drill program of 10,000 meters, because within the resource shell of that deposit, there's a gap that could have 10 to 20 million more ounces in it. And so, which is a significant add, because that resource is 60 million M&I and 17 million more in inferred. So it could be a big add, with one short drill program, which will start in the fall. Then if that was successful, we'd have a refresh on the PEA and then just keep advancing it down that sort of feasibility path. So really great news, big transition really for the company. I believe that value has not been recognized at all in the market yet, and think it will. At the same time, we've continued drilling on that Columba discovery, because we're almost halfway through a 60,000 meter drill program at Columba to expand on the resources, the 54 million ounce maiden resource in the inferred category we put out last year. All the zones are open for expansion. So, and then there's multiple veins with very little drilling or no drilling at all that we'll be testing as well. So the first half plus of this program is just a grid drilling step outs at 100 meters on the already known zones, and find the limits of what's there on the known resource bodies, and then move on to other areas after that. And then end of year, beginning of the new year, have a resource update for Columba. And then if it's large enough at that stage to justify PA, start down that path. So possibly we could have two positive PAs with any luck this time next year. So really exciting. We're well financed for all this work as well. And, really looking forward to getting all that news out.
That's great. I would love to hear a little bit more information about those assay results from those 9 drill holes at Columba. You released those in March. You're continuing the drills turning there. Can you dive into the details of those assay results and what they mean for the project moving forward?
Yeah, so those were from the D vein. There's several veins on Columba. A couple of unique things about Columba. It sits in a novel volcano, and the bottom of that volcanic cone is just barely exposed to the top of the veins. So the vein system is almost hidden, and was underappreciated for the size of the vein district that it actually is because of that. So when you go up elevation of the bottom of that old volcano, you lose your veins very rapidly. You can find your structure, but you don't have the veins anymore, and you don't have silver. So whatever was deposited here originally is still sitting there. It's essentially uneroded. So that's quite exciting, and there's multiple veins there. We put out the maiden resource. There's 17 different veins made up that resource, but there's always a few key structures that make up the bulk that you really go for, and one of those is called the D vein at Columba, where currently 60% of the ounces are in one big zone there, and it was open in all directions. So this first bunch of drilling was just at 100 meters. Let's keep stepping out until we cover that whole region and find the edges of what's already there. So these March holes were doing exactly that, moving along laterally and deeper as well, and hitting that structure in every one of those holes where expected, and also some very high grade intercepts of over 500 grams there, which is typical of this vein. There's some incredible shoots within it, and the shoots are enriched zones within the vein structure itself, and we've got intercepts within that D vein of 34 meters of half kilo silver and 17 meters of almost 650 grams per ton. There's a hole of 98 meters of over 200 grams per ton, true width probably half of that in that case. So some incredible flattened zones. That's all. This program's just kind of defining the details of that, the limits of it. Then we move on to the next set of veins with resources in them, and then the next set after that may have drill holes and some good intercepts, but not enough drilling for resource definition. And then we have veins that haven't even been touched yet. So there's a lot to be tested here, and all kinds of upside growth potential at Columba.
Fantastic. During this PEA, as well as the drill programs, how have you found your interactions with the local authorities, the Mexican government? Because from a political standpoint, in the past, there's been some concerns over a potential, not a ban on open pit mining, but stopping issuing new permits. That was a scare that was out there. Obviously, I think last time we discussed this, there was the cartel activity. Tragically, Vizsla Silver had some issues with that. A lot of people watching know that story. Mexico, and specifically where you are as a jurisdiction, as we sit here today, as you've advanced this PEA, as you have the drills turning, give us an update on that environment and how you're finding it.
Yeah, so Mexico is a big country, very interesting country, and depending where you are, it's a different dynamic. Yeah, at Columba, we're in a very quiet, stable area. No issues there. La Ceguera, similar area there. We haven't had any issues. And then our other two deposits, Promontorio and La Negra, one project that sits in southern Sonora, also in a stable area that at those two projects, which we're not currently working. And our relationships with the locals are very good. We've established long-term access agreements with landowners. In the case of La Ceguera, we own 1,100 hectare ranch over top of the deposit even. And we've got long-term agreements both at Columba and La Ceguera for mining and exploitation to allow that. Very critical whenever we go into a new region is to establish the relationships with the local people, local owners, local communities, and that's the only way that you're going to have a smooth running project, of course, naturally. And we've been in Mexico for, like I said, over 20 years. We've got a Mexican staff. They're really, really professional staff, very good, very great at developing these relationships, and it really comes down to mutual respect. So when you're starting out, and so we've been there at Columba for about 6 years now, and at La Ceguera longer. So we've got these relationships are also long term.
Let's dive into the upcoming catalysts for the company. You've gone over several of them, but if you had to pick 2 or 3 that you think investors should be most focused on for the remainder of 2026 and moving into next year, what would you say those would be?
The drilling at Columba and a resource update drill results will be catalysts throughout the year in bunches, and then a resource update after the program. So that'll be big, because at that stage we'll be making a decision if this is big enough now for a PA or if we're going to continue expansion drilling. Then in the case of La Ciguera, well, this drill program is going to be pretty big news, because it sits right in that pit that the deposit sits within, and there's that gap. So the PEA has envisioned mining all this rock in the gap zone and giving it zero silver value. So if there's 10 or 20 million more ounces there, suddenly now that all that rock that you're moving in the PEA is paying. And so it's going to change all those numbers and improve that a lot too. So that's going to be really exciting to do. And that program will be relatively quick. We'll start early fall and get that gap zone drilled. If it's successful, we could have a quick resource update by end of year and then look at refreshing that PA. So those are two really big catalysts.
And before I let you go, as always, I'll end by opening the floor to you. Is there anything we haven't yet discussed, or anything you think it's particularly important to emphasize that potential shareholders of Kootenay Silver should have their eyes on?
Well, I think one thing to emphasize is that the market in general is not really recognizing the value of the silver that we have. Now with this PEA, it certainly elevates the quality of silver ounces that we have. And Kootenay Silver big picture is a company with a pipeline of projects, 4 different deposits, a positive PEA on one of them, Colombo right behind it on a growing resource, hopefully delivering a PEA in the not too near future, and then 2 more deposits behind that. So here's a pipeline of projects where potentially you get the first one into production, and you're now providing a pipeline of production that could go on for 30 years or more. The mine life on the PEA La Ciguera, by the way, was 14 years. In the first 5 years, producing over 6 million ounces a year, which for a standalone silver producer is huge. So great value there. I believe we haven't seen that in the market at all, and the silver sector in general is not getting the value that's actually there. When you look at the producers and how much money they're making now, you get a few more quarters of them showing what their positive cash flow and net revenues are. Yeah, I got to think that the general market's really going to start moving into the sector.
Great. Well, thank you so much, James. I'm going to put a link in the description below this video and podcast with the Kootenay Silver website, as well as social media for people who want to follow along with the company. James, very much appreciate having you on the show once again.
Pleasure to be here, Jesse. Thank you.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.